Welcome back to the Go to Go podcast, man. Episode 84, NBA season. 12 days from ending. It's April 2nd. Last day of the NBA regular season is on the 14th. Then you got the NBA play-in, of course, and in the West, I mean, it looks really interesting when you look through the teams competing at 7 through 10 seed, and you just had the Rockets go on that tremendous run. I mean, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I sat here and said the Rockets have no chance of, catching up to the Warriors. They'd virtually have to win every game, and the Warriors would have to drop many games. Well, right now the Warriors just 2 games ahead of the Rockets, starting to heat up in that West. We're going to talk, NBA play-in, playoff scenarios, maybe a bit of NCAA hoops that you've been cooking your bets on so far this March, and now we're into April, down to the Final Four in the NCAA tourney, man. But getting it started, I got to start with, my up and down Miami Heat. Right now, the NBA got them power ranked number 11. I feel like that's fair. They've dropped since the last time we talked power rankings when it comes to the Heat. Just saw a crazy stat about how many different rotations and lineups they've played. I think Duncan Robinson's played the most games out of any Heat player, and he has played 62 games this year. So it's kind of crazy. I think Bam's at like 50 or 40. Jimmy's at 40. Hero played, I think, 30 games this year. The Heat is just about getting healthy, getting right. Hero, of course, still kind of into the unknown. But if you get Jimmy, Bam, and the way Rozier's picked up his play lately for the Heat, I think it could be a little bit dangerous in the East. They're sitting at that 7th seed. They're trying to get out of the play-in tournament this year, which they failed to do last year. So we'll see if they're able to dig out a hole. But they beat the Trailblazers by, 60 the other night. And then they pair that with some horrible losses on the other end. It's real shaky in Miami. You go up 40 or lose by 40. You never know which Heat team you're getting.
Yeah, for the Heat, I think the main thing, like what we've been saying these past couple weeks, is just, you touched on it, is health. Like, they just got to get these guys back healthy, and they got to get their chemistry going. Now, will it be, too little too late? Because like you mentioned, none of these guys have played together. They haven't really got that in-game experience this season with, the couple new guys they brought in. So how will that look in the playoffs? But, I mean, when you're talking playoff basketball in the Miami Heat, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, last year, the run they went on, beating the Celtics, beating the Bucks, almost losing the first play-in game to the Bulls, I believe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, up and down, but you have Jimmy, if he's able to elevate his game like he's shown us, in recent years in the playoffs, and then maybe you actually get Hero healthy back in this playoffs. Rozier, started off really cold, really slow, has looked a lot better as of late down the stretch, and Bam continuing, to elevate his game. I think that's all huge. Duncan, he's got his shot going this year. So, I mean, you mentioned it. The Heat, they're kind of just a big question mark basically until we get to the playoffs and we know who's going to be playing and who's out and how these guys playing together, because like you mentioned, it's been up and down. You never really know what you're going to get with this team. Some guys having hot stretches in the beginning of the year. You look at Hawkes, he started off really hot. Then, now towards the end of the season, he's definitely cooled off a bit. Other guys stepping up, in and out injuries, like Patty Mills and Highsmith are playing, important minutes this late in the season. I'm sure it's not what you want to see as a Heat fan. But, yeah, it is mainly just injuries for this Heat team, and to see if they can get back on track and, playing to how we know they can play in the playoffs.
Yeah, K-Love, he's been banged up. Didn't even mention him. Highsmith did step up that, I think it was the Blazers game. He had a career high. I think it was like 24, 25 points. So you got guys stepping up, but you can't really fully rely on that in the playoffs. Hoping for another Eastern Conference Final Caleb Martin appearance like he did last year. I mean, that's what it would take right now with this Heat roster. They kind of got going all banged up, and then moving to the West, I did mention the Rockets were coming back. The Warriors, they responded, I think, with 3 straight W's.
4 right now. 4 straight right now.
4 straight W's right now. They won last night. Did they play?
Yeah.
4 straight for the Warriors, and after all the Draymond antics, people questioning Steph's leadership, I personally don't believe it falls on Steph. The Warriors shown their loyalty towards Draymond Green. I just don't see how people are able to put the blame on Curry. Draymond knows what he has to do. He knows that right now he's being a problem in that locker room, in that organization. I feel like it doesn't fall on Steph. I want to know your thoughts on that Draymond Curry leadership question that's been thrown out the past couple of weeks.
Well, I don't really think. Well, because the dynamic and how that team they've been ran is pretty much been Curry, Clay, and Draymond for the past 10, 12 years. Like those 3 have been the main staple. So I kind of think they've all been on the same level in terms of leadership and who's important, who runs that organization. But as of late, as we see Clay's game kind of take a step back, especially after the injuries. And then now Draymond, who seems to be, a lot more prominent in terms of on-court antics. I think Curry's kind of like the only one who stayed steady in terms of his play and kind of, his behavior on and off the court. So everyone's looking at him as the person who hasn't really changed, the person who's kind of, stayed to that high-level standard that they have over there in Golden State. So, I mean, you can't really put it on Curry. It's at this point, Draymond, what he means for that team, I've heard stuff they're saying that he's the biggest, he's super important in that locker room, he's the bridge between the young guys and all the older guys. Kuminga loves him, and all those dudes really stand up for him, Pajimski, all those guys. And then obviously the relationship he has with Curry and Clay, he's the bridge, and he makes that whole chemistry relationship work between everyone on that team. It's just, so I don't really think it's off the court stuff with Draymond. It's literally just him on the court, not being able to control his temper and just playing with, maybe some would say excessive emotion. But at this point, that's just who Draymond is. At this point in his career, you kind of just got to, take it how it comes. And, same with Clay, where it's not, his on-the-court antics or anything like that, but his play has definitely declined. And, he got benched earlier this season. Now, he's back in the starting lineup, in and out of starting. So, with Clay, you just kind of, it is what it is at this point. He's not the player he used to be. And I think the same can be said with Draymond, where, he's not the same player he used to be. And, yeah, maybe on the court, his techs and fouls and slamming people and hitting people and, talking and all that stuff, maybe that has escalated a little bit more as well. So, I just think, him being in that environment, Draymond's been with that team this entire run. His name definitely holds weight. He's super comfortable in that team, in that system. So I think he's just able to kind of just be himself to the fullest extent. And maybe this is just who Draymond Green is. And, after all these years, all this experience, he kind of feels comfortable enough to act like this on the court. So, it's like the Clay with the 4 rings joke, yeah, they've definitely earned it. This Warriors team has definitely went on some crazy runs, and they're a legendary team. But, it's at this point in time, is that stuff really helping them? I wouldn't say it is. And, Curry also isn't, perfect himself. Ever since the All-Star break, I think he had that little ankle injury. His play hasn't been up to par to, what we expect Stephen Curry as well. So, I think everybody over there on Golden State kind of has to look in the mirror, and that whole team kind of has to, if they really want to go on a run this playoff series or this playoff season, I don't think they will, but, they got the history. They know how to do it. They got that, championship mentality, that championship chemistry. So, they got to look in the mirror. They got to tighten things up, definitely, all around, everybody in that organization. But I think it might just be too little too late for the Warriors.
The Warriors are surprisingly a better road team this year. They're 22-15 on the road compared to 18-19 at the Oracle Arena. So being that 10 seed.
And last season it was completely opposite.
Yeah.
I remember they couldn't win one game on the road, bro. And now it's like they can't win at home.
500, basically 500 at home. But that's not what you want in your home court. You're supposed to be a more dominant team. of course, like the team in front of them, the Lakers, 27-12 in LA compared to 15-21 on the road. Sitting there as a 9 seed. Of course, you're gonna have to play games on the road, but you always want that home court advantage, that extra game at home. And the Nuggets, I believe last week they took the first seed. The Thunder took it back. They're battling, going back and forth. They're both 52-22 or 52-23 are the Nuggets. They did lose Jamal Murray on March 21st, or maybe not the 21st, but he got hurt. They say he's supposed to be back, probably not for the rest of the regular season, but for the playoffs. But
yeah, I think that's more of a precautionary thing, trying to make sure they have a healthy Jamal Murray for the playoffs.
I was going to say, because you go into the playoffs, you're the 2 seed, first round's not going to be a cakewalk. Projected 7 seed, the Phoenix Suns right now, they're sitting at the 7 seed. If you're going at the Suns without Murray, you're going to ask to lean on guys like you did in the finals, kind of like the Christian Brown type players, Michael Porter Jr. to step up, because we know Jokic could get it done, but that 1-2 punch between Jokic and Murray, I think it's one of the best 1-2s in the league. Just the chemistry they have, the play style, the high pick and rolls. They just know where each other is going to be on the court at all times. And Jokic being one of the most gifted, not only players, but passers as well, finding open people after that screen and roll. It's a different type of thing that the Nuggets, I think, do need if they want to repeat as champions this year, which, I might have the Nuggets coming out the West. But I think there's one other team that, could shock coming out the West that I think can make a deep playoff run. I want to know, your thoughts. What's your way too early finals out of the West? Who do you like right now?
Well, obviously, you just touched on it with the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, Jamal Murray is a huge part to that team and what they do, but as long as they just keep running stuff through Jokic, I think they'll be okay. So a team besides the Nuggets, honestly, I'm going to say the Thunder, man. I know they're in the first place right now, but they're a super young team, and I think this could be, the first year or the beginning of something where, this team doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience. They're super young, but if the Oklahoma City Thunder and Shea and everyone on this team are as good as we think, it's got to happen eventually, right? So why not this year? When you look at the West, they're super competitive, but when you look at everything else around them, outside of the Denver Nuggets, a lot of these teams do have some question marks going in to the playoffs, or you just touched on, even if you want to say Jamal Murray is a question mark, I'm not too sure how serious that injury is, but if you want to bring that up, yeah. But you look at the Timberwolves, Cat, he's been banged up. Is Anthony Edwards going to be able to, take this Timberwolves team, put him on his back by himself? That's a question mark. When you look at the Clippers, they had that super, super strong hot start. Now they can't play defense and they can't stop anyone. Is Kawhi, is Paul George, James Harden, all these guys down the stretch, are they going to be fully healthy? Russ coming back from that injury. We'll see how that chemistry is looking, but the Clippers have to play defense at this point. They've shown, maybe they're just okay, we've seen how good we saw our ceiling. Now let's just take a step back and make sure everyone gets to the playoffs healthy. That could be something, but their defense has definitely been, questionable down the stretch. Well, not even questionable, horrible down the stretch. So that should be a question mark going in. You look at the Mavericks, it's Luka, and can he do it all by himself? Luka and Kyrie, will they be able to carry that entire load? Will they be able to beat a team like, Oklahoma City Thunder, where they have a bunch of people contributing all over, whereas the Mavericks is just Luka, and Luka's been on one, the end of this year. He's putting up some crazy numbers, crazy shots, making trick shots off the, Jumbotron and stuff. But, yeah, Luka's insane. And then after Mavericks, you got the Pelicans, Zion, Brandon Ingram, all their health. The Suns, that once again just comes down to health. Can those guys play good together? Can, they get some contributions outside of D-Book, Kevin Durant, and Will Bradley Beal be able to step up? The Kings they're a little more stable, but Malik Monk is a huge loss for them. He was kind of, their big scoring option off the bench and stuff like that. And then you just touched on the Lakers. We just touched on the Lakers and Warriors. Lakers with LeBron and AD, we know what they give you, but offensively, what else is there? Can D'Lo continue his hot play? So when you look at that, and then you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, who this is kind of, they've had like the perfect season. There was no super major injuries for this team. Chet, his, rookie year was out last year, but, his first year playing, he's lived up to, everything they could imagine. Although Giddey did take a step back this year, he's played a lot better down the stretch as of late. And then Jalen Williams has been one of the best two-way players in the league, shooting the three ball at a super high percentage. I believe he's has the most points or has the highest field goal percentage in clutch shots this year. So big shots, he's taking them. They have Isaiah Joe, you mentioned, guys that can spread the floor, shoot the ball. Lou Dort come in, play defense on the perimeter, give you a couple solid buckets. And then you look at SGA as someone who can just get to his spots and just score the ball at will. This is a pretty complete team when you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder. The only thing they really lack, and we've touched on this, is, depth at the center position. They need a little bit more size. But, outside of the Denver Nuggets, who you going to throw at Jokic? The Timberwolves with Cat, I think it'll be a bigger issue because they have those two big men. But now that Cat is out and you just have Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert, maybe, they'll play Kyle Anderson at the small ball five. But regardless, I think Chet will be able to hold up against those guys. So I'm going to just say it's not really a dark horse in terms of standing, but a dark horse in terms of, the narrative and what everyone thinks going into the season. And even right now, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, no one's expecting them to go all the way because they're so young, they're so inexperienced. But the way they're playing, they're the only team that's, seems to be completely healthy or has the best luck with health. And, we always say, what's your best ability is availability. So everyone's there, everyone's available, and they've definitely had some guys step up this year. So if it's not the Nuggets, I'm going to say, my dark horse or ghost or, I don't know where to take is going to be the OKC Thunder.
Jalen Williams, 58.3% from three in clutch situations and nearly 68.9% from inside the three in clutch situations. So that was that stat you were referring to through 74 games. But yeah, obviously the Thunder, the only thing with them you mentioned was their lack of, experience. Shea has been in the league for a little minute now. He has experience. You mentioned Chet didn't play last year. Still technically a rookie.
Yeah,
we know the Ben Simmons rule.
Rookie, yeah.
Ben Simmons Rookie of the Year.
Embiid too.
Embiid. They do it for a lot of guys. But I was going with the Los Angeles Clippers. You mentioned their drop-off. But you put, what was it? It was either last year. I think it was last year. I think it was Kawhi went down with the injury in the playoffs when it just looked like
Kawhi.
They kind of hit stride and they still put up a competitive series, but, PG just wasn't enough to carry that Clips team last year. They got Harden, they got PG, they got Kawhi. You got arguably, Kawhi, the best perimeter defender of our generation, PG, who could play both ways as well. If they could tighten up that defense, right now their defensive rating's 18th in the league. Their offensive is 3rd in the league. We know they can score. They've gone to a lot more ISO this year, whether it's James Harden or, just the play style of the team itself. Now, do they match up well against the Nuggets? Not really. I don't think a team really matches up well against the Nuggets because there's not one person that could guard Nikola Jokic on the court or in the NBA for 48 minutes and be able to hold him to literally nothing. So I really, truly think the Clippers could make a deep playoff push. The Thunder, of course, I like them. Shea, like no other. I said he should have won Comeback Player of the Year, Most Improved last year. He's in the MVP conversation. Probably won't win it this year, but he's definitely up there with the league's best, and he's proven it this year. So I kind of got those Clippers, maybe is my dark horse out the West, if you want to say. And then, I mean, 6 and 7, you got the Pelicans and Suns fighting. And I guess even the Kings, you mentioned, but Malik Monk, that injury, I mean, he's sixth man of the year, hands down. Big loss for Sacramento, but Pelicans and Suns, B.I. went down with the injury. He's supposed to be getting reevaluated, I believe, end of this week, start of next week on his injury. I mean, if B.I. goes down, they still got CJ, they still got Zion, who's stayed healthy this year. He's been on the court performing just how the Pelicans want him to, but without B.I., it really their shot dwindles. They really need that ball handler, another guy to go with C.J. McCollum to handle the ball late in the game, get a bucket, and he has that length at the wing position as well. So I think the Suns could jump up, take that 6th seed, and get out of the play-in, and the Pelicans are sitting there playing the Warriors in the first play-in game. That's just a tough matchup down the stretch for the Pelicans. Injuries come in the wrong time, but you said it, best abilities, availability. So we'll see what that West shakes up. You get any other things you want to talk about in the West before swinging over to the Eastern Conference?
No, I think we pretty much covered, all the topics and everything. But the one thing I will say is your Clippers take, I do think, they have that potential. We saw the ceiling. We saw when they went on, that little 2-3 week run where they were just like unstoppable and stuff. It literally just comes down to their defense. And, if they're able to lock in on the defensive side of the ball, I definitely think they can give a lot of teams issues because they have, those two big wings that can kind of play positionless basketball. They got, 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys that can come in and give you the, create their own shot, create their own offense. Even looking at the bench and Norman Powell, he's definitely someone who can come in, has that championship experience with Toronto, so kind of knows what it takes. Was with Kawhi, had that chemistry. So I think the Clippers are an interesting team offensively. I think they definitely have the talent. They just got to lock in on defense. And if they're able to get stops, get out in transition, make easier buckets, and kind of play that basketball, it's more free flowing, which you kind of want to play when you got Harden and Paul George and Kawhi and all those guys. I definitely think the Clippers could make some noise. You just got to see that defense tighten up.
Yeah. I was just looking at it. The New York Knicks actually play with the slowest pace in the league. I thought it would have been the Nuggets. They're at 27 when it comes to pace. But the Knicks are the slowest team in the league. Quickly, before we move into the East, man, last week, could you guess the biggest or the best plus-minus player? He's in the, I'll give you the conference, Eastern Conference guard.
Was it Brunson?
Yeah, it was Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, he was on one.
He was, what he dropped, like 61 games?
Yeah, 61, I think, against the Spurs, and they lost in OT.
They lost.
Yeah.
Wemby did drop 40 himself.
40 and 20. Yeah.
101 plus-minus in 4 games last week. And then I'm pretty sure you could pick any player off the Portland Trail Blazers, but it was Delano Banton with a minus 84 in 3 games last week. So that's your biggest plus-minus last week in the NBA. Moving to the East, man. I mean, talked a little bit about the Heat already, but once again, Celtics 11.5 games ahead of the second-place Bucks. They're 32-3 at home. I'm still not buying into Tatum, man. He's got to convince me otherwise. It's a championship or bust for convincing me otherwise at this point. I've talked about it plenty of times. I don't know if you want to touch on the Boston Celtics at all.
I mean, I'm right there with you in terms of, at this point, you got to see something from these guys. Like a championship, like you need to see a big run here. But the one thing I will say is this roster is a lot deeper, and I think it's a lot better than the last previous years. Mm-hmm. So if you want to talk about just Tatum, yeah, but if you want to talk about the help around him and the guys they brought in, and so far everyone's healthy. So, I mean, if they're able to, run into the playoffs with this lineup, it's going to be tough because, I mean, I think the key to this is Porzingis. You bring in, 7'1", 7'2" Porzingis who can stretch the floor, brings that interior game. He just shoots over people. Like, that's just hard to guard. And then on the wing, you also have Derek White, who can shoot the ball at a high clip. Jason Tatum shooting the ball. Jaylen Brown, you saw what he did against the Warriors that one game a couple months ago. It's like, oh, we'll just leave Jaylen Brown. And then he just hits every single shot. They just got a lot of skills. Didn't even mention Drew Holiday. Those two guys on the defensive side of the ball. Him and Derek White is going to be tough. So I think everything is set up for the Boston Celtics to win, everything around the Celtics. But like I mentioned, man, it takes one Kristaps Porzingis injury. One, is Drew Holiday completely healthy? Can he play down the stretch? Like, I think one little thing can derail this entire Boston Celtics team because they've been so good this season. Adversity really hasn't been a thing for this team unless you're the Atlanta Hawks and can beat them in back-to-back games. But besides that, this Celtics team has all the talent. They've been cruising. They're shooting they've made 100 more three-pointers than the next team. They're scoring the ball crazy. So, yeah, this Celtics team is really, really good. The talent is really, really good. But I'm also with you. They've had really, really good talent, and they've had really, really good teams the past couple of years, and they just seem to kind of fizzle out. So, I mean, if there's any year or any time for the Celtics to capitalize, I think it's right now. A lot of Boston Celtics fans still want to do, Tatum's only, 25, 26. His team is still young. Even LeBron said it, I didn't win my first one until I was 28 or 29 or something like that. I think it's time for the Celtics to win. This team, they're good enough. They've had a bunch of success. They've made it to the finals already, so that should kind of move the clock forward because you've already had success. You've made it to the finals. You've made it to the Eastern Conference. You're not like LeBron where he was stuck in Cleveland and had to carry this team on his back for, 8 years before he went to Miami and actually had competent, play around him. So Tatum has had pretty good rosters around him his entire career. He's had Jaylen Brown pretty much the entire career, another all-star. Those two guys are a really good duo. Like I mentioned, you add Porzingis, you add Derek White now. You add Drew Holiday, you add Sam Hauser, Payne Pritchard, these guys that can come off the bench and shoot the ball really, really effectively. They got size. They got pretty much everything you need to win a championship. Now they just got to go out and prove it.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think that KP pickup, I said in the offseason was
adds another element to that offense.
Huge. Yeah, I mean, you had a guy that could score, from deep, from inside with his length and his size. You get a quicker Al Horford, essentially, and longer Al Horford. The question was, can KP stay healthy, which he really hasn't for much of his career. It's kind of been the reason his career has been kind of derailed and not lived up to the original hype he had when he came into the league on the Knicks. But, I mean, you look at the 2 through 4, you got the Bucks, Cavs, and Knicks. I mean, besides the Bucks, I feel like the Cavs are just something's missing a step. And same thing with the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks, they need a second superstar or second star. No Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson literally has to, put the team on his back, which he can do. We've seen him do it even last year in the playoffs. But is it truly enough to win a championship? We know it's not a one-man show to win a championship. Even LeBron couldn't do it. You mentioned back in his early days on the Cavs. It's tough to pick a team like the Knicks. I like Brunson a lot, but I just don't think that Knicks team has enough juice to get, I would say, to the conference finals. I mean, they can make, first round win. I don't think they get past the second round with the, just the way the team stacks up and their roster, and it just so heavily relies on JB on the offensive side of the ball.
If the Knicks can get Julius Randle back and he's
pretty playing healthy, with heart,
I think the Knicks team could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Because when you look at guys that have been stepping up, you talked about Jalen Brunson. He's on a whole other level right now. But you got guys like Josh Hart who are coming in. I mean, he's like a triple-double machine now out of nowhere. The hustle, what he brings. DiVincenzo just set the record for the most three-pointers made in the season for the Knicks. He's shooting 40% from three. You look at Anunoby, if he's able to get back healthy as well, I think he's coming back within the next couple of days. His defense and the way he shoots the ball, he's a perfect guy for Thibodeau. All these guys are going to play hard. Hartenstein, they just got Mitchell Robinson back. Those are two really, really big interior defenders. So, on some crazy stuff, if they end up making the finals, like if they meet the Nuggets, like they have guys that can have size, they can throw stuff at Jokic. I mean, he's still going to get his, but, having those big bodies, having those fouls to give is huge. So I think the Knicks and, the way they like to play, they're like an old school team, man. They have like the best rated defense down the stretch these past couple of weeks. They've been a defensive powerhouse, holding teams to like under 100 points in like 3 consecutive games or something like that. It hasn't been done since like the early 2000s. So yeah, I definitely like this Knicks team. I like what they bring on defense, but you mentioned offensively, it can't just all be Jalen Brunson. Now they got guys that can hit shots. Bogdanovich, he can come in and give you a little offense off the bench, but to actually contend and make some noise, you're gonna need a second, all-star, prominent level scorer. And I think that can be Julius Randle if he gets back and if he's, fully healthy from that shoulder. Because then if you look at Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, what they bring, and then you got guys still like Josh Hart, who's, been able to accumulate a lot of confidence playing, 40 minutes a game. Him and I didn't even mention Deuce McBride, another guy who's played a bunch of minutes. DiVincenzo shooting the ball lights out. Like with all these injuries, they've been able to play a bunch of minutes and gain that confidence. So now you got all these guys playing with super high confidence, playing really good basketball, maybe even the best basketball of their career right now. Then you add someone in like Julius Randle. I know he's a polarizing guy, but all NBA type player, all-star type of player, you add them into that team with those two big guys getting back healthy with Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. I think the Knicks could definitely be an issue for some of these teams in the East, but like it comes down to pretty much all of these teams. It's health. I think the Knicks are like a better version of the Heat right now, talent-wise. Whereas if you get all these guys healthy, all of them playing at their best level right now, I think the Knicks could definitely be a problem.
He got one thing the Knicks don't. Heart. The Knicks' defensive rating on the year.
I don't know. The Knicks do have literally a heart. Josh Hart.
Yeah, they got Josh Hart and JB. I was referring to more Julius Randle playing with no heart, but they are 8th ranked defensively when it comes to rating on the year as a whole, and they're 10th ranked offensively. So top 10 in both of those categories. They can get it done on both ends of the court. Did you know Hartenstein was black?
Well, yeah, I saw the podcast or whatever, the clip of the
he
day.
was on.
He said his dad's light skin.
Bro.
Yeah, so I mean, cool. Shout out Hartenstein.
The Magic, I mean, they kind of been cruising at that 5 seed all year long. I mean, do they have enough? They're a young core. I feel like they could win around maybe here in the playoffs. They play in that 4-5 matchup against the Knicks. That'd be a tough matchup to go up against. Jalen Brunson could single-handedly dismantle a team. You look at the Pacers at 6. People are talking about Halliburton and his, second half fall off. Is he? I saw something. Is he get away in big moments, big games? Is he truly a player, or is he just a stat patter? I mean, that's what they were calling him. I don't agree with it, but that's what the talk about around the league has been on Tyrese Halliburton so far. You got the Sixers sitting at the 8. No Embiid. We mentioned Tyrese Maxey kind of do it all. That team, you're just making a joke about the Hawks before the podcast, saying Hawks and the Bulls, teams under 500 shouldn't be in the play-in. That Hawks team was the one that beat the 1-seeded, double-digit lead Celtics in that 1 seed. It took a lot. I mean, what was it? DeAndre Hunter went off.
Yeah, and DeJounte Murray.
44 shots.
Yeah.
What do you have? 44 points on 44 shots.
Yeah.
Efficiency not there, but you get a dub, you'll take it. I mean, without Trae Young, it's tough in Atlanta, but I mean, I could see DeJounte, going off. And right now with this play-in, the Heat are the most fortified team out there. Like the Sixers pretty decent, Heat pretty decent. The Bulls, no Levine, they got DeRozan. Hawks, no Trae Young. It's kind of like that East playing obviously isn't as good in the West, but do you think, one of those subpar 500 teams could shock us?
No, but I think I just don't. Like,
That's why, yeah.
But I mean, Embiid, saw clips of him, practicing at the facility. It's looking like he's going to be returning soon within the next couple of days, getting ready for the playoff run. So that could be interesting if we see the 76ers, fall down to a lower seed and they get to match up with one of the higher seeds who, coming into the season when Embiid was fully healthy, playing at that MVP level, we were like, this could possibly be, an Eastern Conference Finals matchup. Now we might see one of those matchups in round 1 or 2. So that'll be super, super interesting. If Embiid's, back on the court, if he's back healthy, that's just brings a whole nother dimension to the 76ers team. So, I mean, we saw it earlier this season. So, yeah, I think Embiid's on track to play in this play-in. So I think that kind of scratches off whoever they play. And you mentioned the Miami team. I think they'll be able to do enough to get past. You look at the Bulls, who they've been banged up. A lot of guys up and down, a lot of young players. And then the Hawks, you lose Trae Young. Like, DeJounte Murray's not going to be able to give you 44 points and shoot 44 shots every single game. So those two teams I kind of think are just, playing for pride at this point. They made the play-in. They're just going to go out there and give it their all. But I definitely think the Heat and the Sixers, those two teams right now, they look like they could definitely handle their business in the play-in.
No doubt, man. You got any more Eastern Conference NBA topics?
Nah, East isn't as exciting as the as the West. But real quick, just touch on the Cavs.
Oh yeah.
You said earlier like something's missing. Like, yeah, something definitely is missing, and it's Donovan Mitchell not fully healthy, and without Donovan Mitchell, that true superstar on that Cleveland team, they just have a bunch of question marks. So I'm not too sure how far the Cavs can go. Haven't been playing well as of late, and then the Magic are literally just the New York Knicks without Jalen Brunson. So I don't think offensively they have nothing. So, well, I'm not gonna say they have nothing, but they have Paulo Franz. He's been kind of in a cold slump. Jalen Suggs, he's more of a decent defensive guy who can hit a couple shots here and there. But outside of Paulo, they don't really have any consistent offense. So, and I don't think Paulo's on the level that Jalen Brunson is yet. He can get there, but right now Brunson's definitely playing out of his mind on a different level. He's elevated his game. So, yeah, those are the two teams that are kind of up in the top 5 mix that I think have some serious question marks.
Donovan Mitchell out for tonight's game, injury management, and it was in Utah. He won't play against his former team in Utah this year. He didn't play earlier in the season. Just saw that on Twitter. So no return game for Donovan Mitchell in front of Jazz fans. But real quick, man, I don't know if you guys know, I'm sitting next to the NCAA betting go right now. Apparently, Final Four matchups, man. We got the Purdue Boilermakers versus the NC State Wolfpack and America's sweetheart team. DJ Burns, the big fella, who someone said, I don't know if they're joking or not, that NFL Pro Day is a week before the NCAA championship.
I think a week after.
A week after the NCAA championship, and that scouts and GMs want DJ Burns to go work out because
as a tackle. I saw that.
Was it as a tackle or guard? Tackle?
I saw tackle, yeah.
So I don't know if he played any football in high school or anything like that, but that'd be pretty insane. DJ Burns obviously taking over March Madness right now as the 11th seed, NC State, and I think they're the first team with so many losses, maybe even double digits, to make it to the Final Four. But yeah, who do you like? I know we talked about it before. Purdue, NC State's that first game. It's a 9.5 point spread. I know you're a big spread guy betting points. What's your take on that game?
Well, I think this game is gonna be maybe like the most hyped game because you like you mentioned you have NC State, DJ Burns, those guys. They've been playing some really really good basketball here in the tournament, and then when you look at Purdue, and everything just runs through Zach Edey, like every single thing runs through Zach Edey. If you watch that team, so it's gonna be like kind of a battle of the big man kind of. You look at Burns and Edey, you'll probably see them matched up a couple times throughout the game, but I just think Purdue and what they want to do and how they run their offense and what they do is just more stable at this point because Edey's been doing this for almost 2 full years where you have NC State and DJ Burns and this kind of, Cinderella run, like you mentioned, they're an 11th seed. So this is kind of all new to them. I think it'll be entertaining when you look at the spread. I think 9.5 is a pretty good number. I think NC State has a chance to cover, but ultimately I would pick Purdue to kind of pull out in the end. You kind of get some of those guys in foul trouble. You saw against who was it? Duke. Purdue just played.
Mm-hmm.
No, NC State played Duke.
Yeah.
Whoever Purdue just played, a lot of their big guys getting in foul trouble. I believe it was Tennessee. A lot of those guys getting in foul trouble, not able to have enough guys to stand there and kind of stop Edey in the paint. Maybe he had like 40-something points, shot like 17 free throws. So it's tough to stop him, especially in college when you only get 5 fouls. I mean, it seems like those go so quick. So I think Edey gets those guys in foul trouble and Purdue holds on. But listen, man, NC State, that was a team to where I didn't see this coming. I didn't make a lot of money on NC State. I didn't bet a lot on NC State until, that last round where I figured they'd pull it off. So NC State has definitely been a fun team. DJ Burns, if I'm DJ Burns, I'm working out for the at NC State's pro day. I'm doing everything I possibly can, weighing all my options, seeing wherever that money's going to be at if I'm DJ Burns. Even though I saw that like he wants to just play basketball, but hey man, listen, money talks. So
even if he doesn't end up playing football, just going out there, I mean,
getting more buzz, more name. Like I mean,
it's just bringing
that'll be
everything.
all over social media. Everyone will be talking about it. Like he's at the pro day or whatever.
Especially endorsements are gonna go crazy. Like,
and he's a really good athlete too. So if he tests really well, like if he runs a solid time or puts up some crazy numbers, and you see him start comparing them to like some NFL pro, like some great NFL players and stuff like that. Like, oh, can he be the next so and so? Like, that'll be super interesting. And like you mentioned, get some buzz, get some endorsements, whatever. But yeah, I think Purdue against NC State definitely be a good game, but I just think that Purdue and their offense and the way they run, I think it'd be a little too much for NC State.
Yeah, you mentioned DJ, but his footwork is insane for a big fella moving at his weight. So you could see why they went on the outside, at the tackle position in football. But I'm going with the upset, man. You mentioned Zach Edey. Taking it back to last year when Purdue got upset in the first round, and they basically neutralized Zach Edey. I'm just riding the Cinderella story at this point. There's nothing else behind it. Just give me, DJ Burns.
Yeah, I don't hate it. Like if I had to pick the points for any one of these, like
you're taking NC State 9.5.
9.5 for the points. Yeah,
that's what it is on a Hard Rock here in Florida, man. I saw a couple different books. They're giving them 10.5. The books always know something we don't. So, and then the late game, you got UConn that just went on that 30-point run. It's gonna be tough. It's UConn, Alabama, and Alabama's sort of they snuck in. Auburn was the SEC champs. Auburn goes down early. Florida was the runner-up. Florida goes down early. To the wire games for both those SEC guys, and it's just Alabama left, and they're going up against the defending national championships. A lot of people that actually had repeating this year in UConn. I think this one was at 11.5 point spread for this one. And I don't know, man. I do like UConn here. I'm not sure about 11.5, but
yeah, UConn is they go on like an insane run every game. Like halftime last week, we talked about it. Like, it was, I think they even down. Like, it was a close game. It was super close. And then you look up,
I think it was maybe tied at halftime or something.
Yeah. And they can just go on a 30-0 run. Like, this UConn team, I think what separates them mainly is they got a lot of depth, man. They got guys that can come off the bench and still score. They have a lot of size. All of their, even their guards, they're super big. They get out, they run, they rebound. I mean, they're just the most complete team at this point. Alabama, they're more that running gun kind of team. They like to get out fast. They score. They can shoot the ball decently, but Alabama just puts up a bunch of points. I think they can kind of keep up with UConn in a sense, but scoring wise, but defensively, I think UConn can kind of lock in. And if Alabama, doesn't get a few shots to go, it can get kind of ugly. It can get real ugly, actually, not kind of ugly. We just saw UConn going. We keep bringing up that 30-0 run, but like that's insane. The runs, they say college basketball is a game of runs, and I think when you look at UConn, the way they're built, the way they like to play basketball, and who they have, and how they're able to just kind of go to a bunch of different players, they can go on runs. So yeah, I like UConn in this one as well.
Yeah, UConn 5 players averaging over 10 points a game, and you look at the Alabama roster, you got 4 players over 10 points a game. But after Sears, there's a serious drop-off. He's averaging 21. Next closest is Estrada with 13.4 a game. You mentioned they're an offensive team. They could go out and get it. And it seems like Alabama's kind of played with this pace for the last 10 years now. They're a running gun. Yep. I mean, the defense, they know they're going to give up points. They're trying to outscore their opponents, and they're trying to be quicker, which could help if you're down, a big margin. Being able to go get buckets quick also hurts you if you end up going too fast, and then UConn goes on that run. You're just losing possessions. So I really do think – I don't think you'll see a 30-0 run or even a 20-point run, but I think this game is going to be near the double digits, or I think both teams are going to score, 80 points, 70 points, close to that 100-point mark, but I think UConn prevails. So I think we're going to see a UConn NC State. That's what I'm going for. NCAA March Madness final. We'll see what it comes down to, man. It's getting good. But yeah, you got any last comments, takes?
Pretty much it.
Topics.
Hoops.
Hoops, man. Go episode 84. Go pod on TikTok. Go YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all that. And until next week, man, we'll be back with another episode. Peace.